They renamed it the Harvard Study. And what they did is they took these people and they followed them through their life. This one thing that they found is that at age 45, those people who had the most meaningful relationships, they tended to live longest.
Wow.
There is something that we feed off of each other. So those that had the most meaningful relationships ended up having longer life. Wow. And they also found there is a higher happiness with those people.
So not just spouses, but just overall, just like a good relationship with their kids.
You're mixing up two studies.
Oh, those are two different studies.
The Harvard study is the one where they measured the number of relationships.
Oh, okay.
I think that thing about the 95% of your happiness comes from the person you choose as a spouse, I think that was a bumper sticker in North Dakota.
Oh, that makes me feel so much better.
Yeah, you want to get that. Now, maybe on a tobacco truck, so I don't know, a beer truck.
Fully Connected. Welcome back to the Fully Connected Podcast, your go-to destination for inspirational conversations to help you become your greatest version. I am your host, Chris Jones, licensed therapist and owner of Fully Connected Counseling. Today, we got another special guest, all right? He is a former president and COO of Stockade restaurants. He's also a former vice president of marketing for Pizza Hut and also Papa John's, right?
Yeah.
And so, Joe Sauer.
Boy, you got a good memory.
Joe Sauer.
Because it's been a long time.
It's been a long time. Yes.
I'm flattered to be here.
Definitely. And real estate. You do real estate.
I ventured in it, and then I really did retire.
Retired from real estate.
I retired from real estate. And so I'm a professional hobbyist now. That's what I am.
Professional hobbyist.
Yeah, that means you get to get up late.
There you go. So how does it feel to be retired?
It's a beautiful thing. Mm-hmm. You know, I spent so much of my life in airports and in meetings and my wife retired from a business career also. We have decided we never will again get inside a metal tube and fly somewhere.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I was on an airplane 2 to 4 times a week.
Wow.
And just, yeah.
Wow. So what company was that? What company was sending you on the airplane?
When I was young, it was Pizza Hut Incorporated. When I was older, it was the International Pizza Franchise Holders Association. Yeah. It was RMC Restaurant Management Company had its own jet. And so, you know, and that spoils you, of course.
Absolutely.
But
a lot of pretzels and crackers.
A lot of pretzels. Boy, what you do for pretzels.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So if you could tell everybody who's tuning in, like exactly what you were doing before you retired.
Okay. I spent 20 years. Well, I got 2 degrees from Wichita State University. Mm-hmm. I got a marketing degree. That was a bachelor's degree in business administration. And then I got an MBA. Mm-hmm. And while I was working on my graduate program, I got an internship for Pizza Hut Incorporated. Mm. And I was just a grunt with a 10-key machine running statistical analysis for a marketing research analyst.
Wow.
I was his guy in the hall. Give it to Joe, he'll run the numbers. And so that's what I did. And then I spent 20 years in marketing.
Okay.
I had 3 goals. I wanted to be a director by 30, I wanted to be a vice president by 40, and a president by 50.
Why were those goals important?
Milestones. Ego. Forward motion.
Yeah.
Bigger span of control, bigger influence, a seat at better tables, make a difference. Money. Money. Did I leave money out? I needed money, which is why I was able to. There are 3 reasons I could retire at 63.
Wow.
3 reasons. And that's.
Look at that. The money. Yeah. Now, speaking of money, right?
Uh-huh.
A lot of people sometimes are fearful of getting money because they hear that, money is the root of all evil. But could you give your thoughts and opinions about this? Because people have different thoughts and opinions about it. And I'm just kind of curious.
I'm reading a book right now because in the fall I'm going to be an adjunct professor at Wichita State University.
Really?
Yeah, in the marketing department.
Well, you just don't stop.
I don't stop. So I'm a busy retired guy. So I got a lot of part-time gigs. Mm-hmm. It's the gig gig economy, right? There you go. I'm in part of the gig economy. But in that book, the people that wrote the textbook, he made the point that sometimes salespeople feel guilty about the money part of it because they. I don't know why you should feel guilty about something you earned.
Right.
Because you only get the money when you give up either your time or your talent or your sweat.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have already spent some of your money and time in order to prepare to even be asked to do what they pay you for.
Right.
It's just supply and demand.
Supply and demand.
There's no guilt. You can tell I'm a capitalist.
Yeah.
I'm a proud capitalist.
Can you talk about the positives of capitalism? Because I feel like a lot of like young people, they always say, oh, we live in this capitalistic society. But what are the positives of capitalism, you know?
I think it puts accountability for your decisions.
Yes.
I believe in accountability. When you make a bad decision, well, who should pay the price? Well, you should. Then that's harsh. So be careful in your decisions and be prepared to accept when it doesn't go perfect, because it never goes perfect. None of mine did. They went over the long haul. They went more good than bad, but boy, did I have some real ego checks in there like, well, you're just not good enough to do that.
Really? What were some of the ego checks?
Okay, there's I was chief operating officer of a small division of restaurants. And they moved me to a bigger division of restaurants. But it was part of a bigger venture in the company. And so my title went from chief operating officer to director of operations. Okay. And there was no change in salary. But when you lose a title I told you that had been important to me. Why? Ego, title, money, things,
status,
all the things. It's a badge. You get a badge. Okay, so I had to do that. And then later, I was put into a job. The company went through a hard time. And I was cut. My salary was cut $30,000 a year.
Whoa.
Yeah, the president said, I want you to do that job, but I can't afford to pay you this much to do that job. Oh, wow. Well, my old job had been given to someone else. So that's a little bit hard.
Oh, definitely. How old were you at that time?
50.
50.
So I wasn't a kid. I mean, it mattered.
Yeah.
The money still mattered. I was probably finishing up college or something for a boy, or I have 2 sons. And so, it mattered. But you come out of that. No, none of that's fun.
Yeah.
But it sure is not insurmountable.
Yeah, it humbles you.
Yeah, it humbled you.
You know, it sucks, but it's like, man, like, wow.
Yeah, it humbled you.
It humbled. Was there anything else that humbled you through like your career of being an executive?
Yeah. I was the vice president of marketing, and the company had gotten into trouble with debt. And they had to sell off a big batch of restaurants. When you sell off the assets, each of those restaurants, 6% of what they made was sent to support the home office.
Okay.
Well, I was part of the home office, vice president of marketing. You're not out there making pizzas or frying chicken. You are back there directing things. The 2 most expensive people in the company, besides the president, were me and the chief financial officer. And so we knew a year in advance that these restaurants were going to be sold. When that contribution to the home office diminished, we were going to have to go. I didn't like it, but I understood it.
Right.
I hated it. But the guy who was the then president contacted his best friend, and he hired me to be a marketing director.
Okay.
So you get humbled, but sometimes things just happen. Sometimes you make mistakes.
How can we like make sure that our ego doesn't get in the way? Because I know you talked about the ego, and I think it can be good to have the ego to be able to get to that career success and the status, but how do we make sure it doesn't get in the way?
You watch, you see people smarter than you through your life, and you see it's not perfect for them.
Yeah.
I saw people that I admired so much in a career facility that didn't have great personal lives. They struggled somewhere else.
Yeah. So the career, everything was
on point.
The
career looked great, but I knew they were struggling at home.
Yeah.
None of us, none of us get out alive, and some of us don't hardly survive the bruises, but I got sick a lot of times. 2 heart attacks, 4 cancers.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
2 heart attacks, 4 cancers.
1 major heart attack when I was 47.
Really?
Happened at the gym. I was healthy. Weighed 20 pounds less than I do now. I was young and healthy. It was just, my father had them.
Yeah.
Today, my wife and I talk, we worry our sons are going to have them.
Okay.
Because you live in a high-pressure world.
Yeah.
Stress. And it's just the gift I got from my dad. The cancer came from Mom, thanks. So,
man.
But she said, you must have been made on a Friday because, the workers that made you, they were ready to get out for the weekend because you're faulty. She said, I'm a lemon. So,
really? That's what she told you?
She said that to me. That's my wife. That's my favorite person said that.
This is her favorite person told you.
But why not me?
But I feel like it's the exact opposite. You went through 2 heart attacks, 4 cancers, 11 grandkids.
I'm lucky.
Yeah.
How are you not lucky? Yeah, there you go. And people say, you're a little bit stupid if you think you're lucky. But yeah, if you...
Wow.
This isn't all about sickness, but if you can get out of that and go on and continue your life, that's a gift. I feel lucky. I'm 70 years old. Many people have it. They get sick.
Yeah.
They're stuck in a chair, or they're stuck in a bed,
right,
or they're tied to a computer to breathe.
It's sad.
It's sadder than all get out, but so I feel lucky.
Do you feel like our society, makes us sick? We're constantly trying to chase that American dream.
Yes.
Climbing the next ladder, as you say.
Yes.
How can like a young person still be able to chase their passions and their career status without the sickness or the high stress? Is it even possible?
My way isn't the proven right way. My way is just one way, and it was the way I made it so that I could do it. So I'm not a guru. I'm not a life expert. I'm a Joe expert is what I am. That's all I can be expert on. I was told, and I obviously, I told you I had those goals. I obviously was ambitious.
Yeah.
And I had an ego that is good when you have drive and you need to achieve things. But every time you climb a ladder, when you get to the top of that ladder, you find out, think of a ladder like this, and right about here, before you get to the top of it, are clouds. And so you can't see the very end. So you're climbing through, you go through the clouds, so you get on the other side, you find out that ladder's leaning on another ladder.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
This is another, so once you get to the top, you're like, wow, this is not even the top.
It's never going to be the top because, man, think of the very best of something, be it a politician, be it an athlete, be it a entertainer. In 3 years, someone's going to come in and break your record.
Yeah.
Someone's going to be more popular in politics. Someone's going to sell more records or streams. Excuse me.
Man, isn't that crazy, right?
So get over yourself. I had some people every once in a while say, you just got to keep the spokes in the wheel even.
Yeah. I remember you talked about that before. Yeah, the spokes.
And so my spokes really would get out of balance.
Now, for the ladder, would you say like the person that keeps climbing, even when they've already reached that, is that kind of more of just they're not able to kind of humble their ego?
Yeah. You keep climbing, you want the next badge. And
when is
want
the ceiling?
Bigger stage.
When do you feel like the ceiling should be? Is it like a financial number?
That's funny.
It's like, because a lot of people like, I want to get financial freedom. Like I have a lot of clients that I see, they're like, I want to be financially free because this is a new, well, it's not a new term, but it's through the internet and TikTok. Everybody wants to be financially free.
Yeah.
Is that the goal?
I want to be financially, I can't say I'm free.
Right.
I worked 40 years in harness, from getting out of graduate school. And 40 years later, I spent 20 years in marketing, 10 years in operations, and I'll call it executive management, where I was the boss, the president. And then I spent the last 10 years in talent management, and which is really where I belonged. But, there wasn't such a thing.
Right.
40 years ago. What's talent management? Sounds like overhead,
It sounds like overhead. But like you said, the wheel and then the spokes.
Yeah.
Like what's in the center of the wheel?
Well, you're in the center, and the world is out the wheel that wants to go around and progress toward your goal is best operating when it's perfectly round.
Okay.
Each spoke has to be the same length. And so one spoke is your economic or your financial life. Another spoke is your spiritual life. Another spoke is your personal life. These are all relationships. This relationship with the economic system, this relationship with your business, this your relationship with your spouse.
Right. It's a big
It's a relationship with God, and there are more. I'm leaving a relationship with the government. Pay your taxes.
You got to pay the taxes.
Yeah, you're in a system, so you keep all those spokes even. Well, that's hard to do.
Yeah.
Because there's sometimes you have to sprint on one direction and work real hard to get that right.
Right.
I mean, we all understand that. Men understand that. When you think you found the girl. Yeah, you sprint pretty hard, and your focus of attention goes to that.
How can somebody know when they found the one? Because you've been married now for how many years? 40. 40. Yeah, 40
This is
years.
May. It'll be. What's the date?
May 19th.
Oh my! In 2 days, 48 years.
In 2 days. 48.
I'm so glad you said that.
Let me make sure. 18th.
You
got an extra
in
day.
3 days, 48 years. Yeah. I don't forget it very often, but.
Wow, man.
Yeah, so.
Because I remember how you said how you met her, when we had the conversation before. But like, how can somebody know, like, hey, this is the one?
Whew.
This is the one.
Oh man, that's too much for an old guy. How do you know? I did my best work as a very young man.
Right.
I remember in one conversation, it may have been with you, where I said, if you have people that you love and respect, and you bring that girl around, okay, and for me it's a girl, all right, see how woke I am?
See,
There's that. Give me that. For me it was a girl.
Okay.
So you bring that girl around, and the people you love and respect and admire all seem to react positively. Well, there's a pretty good, that's not science.
Right, no.
It's, for me it was my mother, my father. She could be around my uncles. If you could get by my uncles, jeez.
That's the test right there.
Rough trade, baby. Brothers-in-law, the sisters, your friends.
Definitely. They got to pass
really
the test.
She just impressed them all because she was sweet. She was smart.
Yeah.
I'm just bragging on her.
Yeah. And you did all the work to be able to have her,
Yeah.
You weren't out here unemployed or like just...
I'll tell you what. I talk to you about how I was proud. I was proud of ambition. What impressed her is that she said I was so confident.
Yeah.
I had no reason to be confident at 16, baby. I was faking it. I was a pencil neck. I mean...
So you met her at 16?
No, I didn't. I met her at 16. I didn't. I thought you said you married her
at
16.
No. I was like, I
met her at 16, and I married her when I was 23.
Okay.
And we had a first child at 25.
25, there you go. So they said Joe was confident.
Yeah.
He had the swagger.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyhow, I got lucky. I put myself in places where I could meet good people.
How did you do that?
I had a best friend. We met when we were 13. And he was the smartest guy in the grade school he went to, which was the same school she went to. Mm-hmm. And he was the smartest guy in the high school that he and I went to. We went to a boys' school together.
Okay.
Capon. Used to be all-boys school.
It used to be all boys?
All boys.
Wow.
Yeah. And until the year we graduated, 1971, in 1972, they closed it down and moved the boys over to Mount Carmel because it was the newer building, and they made it a co-ed school, which is normal. But before that, it had been made an all-boys school, and that was an all-girls school.
Okay.
She didn't go to either school. She didn't go to the boys' school, and she didn't go to Mount Carmel. She went to Southeast High School. But she and my friend had gone to the same grade school. She was a year younger than us, a year behind us, but we were in just a church group. And so there were parents and priests around that just made sure that fun, good things happened.
Hey.
And so I was smart in that I put myself where there's more likely to be good stuff happening than bad stuff happening.
Right. And that works well for business, career.
Oh, man, it does.
Like we talked about before, like being on the golf course or just, even though we don't play, even though we both are good at it.
That's right. I have friends that they swear that their afternoon basketball games move their business forward tremendously.
Wow.
And they just go to the Y, and they just made those relationships.
So the business deals get made on the basketball court.
On the basketball court. Just don't elbow him,
Just
don't. Block him out, but don't elbow the guy, not in the gullet anyhow,
And then speaking of like business, because I know that you have done so well, like for these companies you worked for, like how did you know, like for yourself, like when you reached your level of like success, when you were doing all these things, like being an executive and a president, when did it hit you when you're like, man, like I feel like I've made it?
It's funny. I felt like I made it one time when Frank Carney offered me a job, because Frank Carney had been the president of Pizza Hut and the co-founder. He and his brother were the co-founders of Pizza Hut Incorporated in 1957. I met him in 1974 when I was an intern. 76, excuse me, when I was an intern and a graduate student.
Okay.
And he remembered me. And I mean, that was a lot of levels. He was the president. There's a senior vice president of marketing. There's a vice president of marketing services. Wow. There's a director of new products. And then there was Joe.
Wow.
And so I had been in a presentation where he just turned to me. He said, well, Joe, when do you think you can have this ready? I turned around to see what other Joe was there, because I couldn't believe he knew my name.
Wow. So what do you think it was? Like,
well, I knew I'd made it when that guy,
Frank,
who had, he started an international brand, and golly, what is it, 75, 70 years Pizza Hut's been around?
So he was the co-founder, him and his
brother.
Wow.
His brother's still alive. He's in his 90s. Dan Carney.
Pizza Hut was here in Wichita.
Yeah, it started in Wichita.
That's what's crazy.
Yeah.
Wichita State campus, right?
Yeah. The building got moved there. Mm-hmm. So anyhow, I think I felt I made it when Frank Carney asked me to be his operating partner.
Wow.
And so because I revered him, and he was, he was a creator. He was an entrepreneur. And he had made the jump from being a business starter to running a big organization.
Wow.
When I joined Pizza Hut, there were over 3,000 restaurants in the United States.
Wow.
And it grew probably to 5,000 in the United States, and I don't even know how many across the world. So this guy had a big basket of knowledge, and he asked me to be his partner. So that's when I first felt, man, I have made it.
He's like, I made it now.
It's like being if you make movies and Scorsese asks you to come in and act or to do the film editing,
right?
Baby, you made it.
Yeah,
they know their stuff.
Wow.
So
Frank was like the Scorsese of.
He was.
Yeah. Of the restaurant industry.
Frank was the guy that investors would always take his call. And so you want to hook up with the guy who investors will take their call. He introduced me one time after I had become his operating partner in Sacramento, and we were opening Papa John's restaurants. And he said, we're going to go, I'll meet you in Denver. And I said, where are we going in Denver? And he said, just the airport.
So Papa John's is a spinoff of Pizza Hut.
No, they're direct competitors. Oh, this is a juicy story.
I didn't know if it like started off like that.
He owned Pizza Hut with his brother.
Okay.
They became a public company, and in 1979, and Pepsi bought them. PepsiCo. PepsiCo bought Pizza Hut.
Okay.
And they owned Frito-Lay and North American Van Lines, Wilson Sporting Goods, Pepsi-Cola around the world, and then they bought Pizza Hut. And then they bought Taco Bell, and then they bought
everything.
One. Yeah, and then they bought KFC.
Okay.
And Long John Silver's and A&W restaurants. They bought a bunch of them. And they decided to spin off the restaurant group and make it a separate restaurant.
Okay.
And Frank wanted to be the guy that ran all 5 chains, the chief executive officer of that new company, and which is now Yum. And he didn't get the job.
Really?
Yeah. They hired some guy who used to be the president of Burger King to do it.
Interesting.
And so Frank decided, okay, I quit. So he quit. They got a new Pizza Hut president, that replaced him. And he took his $21 million.
Well, that's what he cashed out with.
Yeah.
Whew.
He cashed out. And that's when $21 million was $21 million.
Give you a little bit of a taste of that 21?
That's before 1980. $21 million changed.
Good God.
You can be done.
But he still was going.
He was still going. He was a
Man.
race car driver. He was a young man. He was in his 40s. So
Definitely.
he'd keep doing stuff. So I also learned, excuse me,
You're good.
Frank, that people are different. And he told me this about himself. He made all those millions, and so did his brother. They cashed out, and it was 50-50.
Mm-hmm.
And his brother invested in a wide variety of things, highly diversified. He had restaurants, he had probably wheat fields, he probably had beef, he had oil. He just invested all over. And he was very successful and built his fortune up. Frank tried that and he lost everything. And so then he got involved in another chain, and it was called Chi-Chi's. Boy, I haven't thought of that. It was a Mexican chain on the East Coast of the United States. And there was one in Wichita, probably in the 1980s. And he built up the franchise. He didn't own it, but he got a franchise. And he built it all along the Atlantic seacoast and then sold it off.
Wow.
And made a second fortune.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Did something else, lost it again.
What makes somebody to lose that amount of
He's a risk taker.
Yeah. But he keeps going.
The difference between he and his brother, and when I was his partner, I was in Sacramento, California, and he'd come out. I'd see him like every 6 weeks maybe to 10 weeks. Okay?
Yeah.
And we'd ride around, and I'd show him like real estate locations, say this is where I think we ought to put him, and he'd yay or nay. He was the boss.
He's the boss.
And he had the purse from all the different investors, so, I mean, he listened to my opinion, but I was an opinion. He had done this before, So I respected his opinion. But he would come out every once in a while, and he just told me differences between he and his brother.
Yeah.
He found out that his brother could operate on a horizontal level in many different industries and many different businesses and be successful.
Okay.
He said, when I tried that, I lost it. He said, only time I have succeeded is when I got into a business, and for him it tended to be the restaurant business. And he said, and I dialed down really deep in one vein, and I really concentrate on one thing. The exact opposite of his brother.
Really?
So Frank would get into a business and be very, very vertical. Know it from the top to the bottom. And then line up people to handle all the different parts.
Do you feel like that's a better formula?
It's a different formula. He just finally, after losing a fortune and making it back, goes, oh. He said, I just can't do what my brother does. He said, I have to do it this way. So it just means that personalities and brains work different.
What kind of personality does somebody need to have to start their own company like at that level?
Oh, man. Well, he didn't start at that level. He started at a little level, and then he had a wide, what kind of personality?
Yeah.
This is all about...
I feel like you have that personality a little bit, right?
Yeah, no, I'm not the risk taker.
You're not the risk taker.
Yeah, I never started my own. I always was the salary guy. I was always the second guy to that guy.
Oh, right.
I was always very well paid to be at the table. They wanted my opinion, but I didn't ever. I was risk averse, so I never made the money he made. I mean, I've never had $21 million.
Ooh, it's a lot of money.
And
back then too.
Back when it counted. So he got paid for the risk. And he got paid because he probably didn't sleep at nights because he was worried about everything, and he'd hire me to worry about something.
Yeah.
So, what kind of personality? I worked for 3 guys that were very successful entrepreneurs, and they were all very different. One was an accountant, one was a marketing guy, and then there was Frank Carney, who was a college dropout.
Really?
Yeah, he was going to college, and this Pizza Hut thing started working, and I don't think till later he went back and finished.
Wow.
But
so he always was a risk taker.
Yeah, he was just a big risk taker.
Wow.
And obviously he had a talent for finding the right people.
Yeah.
That's the biggest talent.
And you talked about too, like there was somebody that you hired that you feel like that was one of the.
Yeah.
I forget who it was.
His name's Keith Solons.
Yeah, you said he did really well at his job.
Yeah. He's a punk kid. He talked like this. He's from Missouri. He's from the Ozarks. If you hire me, I'll do you a really good job. And I thought, oh my God, I'll hire you just to shut you up. And he was so good. So when Frank offered me a job once, I turned it down. It wasn't the right time for me and my family, or I had just gotten a new job that I didn't want to leave. Something was keeping me from doing it. And I said, you need to hire this guy.
Right.
And he called Keith. Well, Keith is wildly successful running the Houston, Texas market and building it for Papa John's.
Wow.
And so he had crazy enthusiasm. He was more bubbly and enthusiastic and loud, rattled in the room like I do. Frank was the opposite. He was a quiet guy.
Did he have those, like the acronym you said, S.O.F.T.E.N? Did he have those skills? Like, because I'm trying to remember with the acronym, the S.O.F.T.E.N.
You remember that?
Yeah,
he
it stuck with me.
had those skills. Yeah, Keith really had the skills. By the time I was around Frank, I got to admit, he never needed those skills with me because I looked up to him because he was in a very, very senior position. So I was pretty much just listening if he breathed in my direction. Where Keith, he was very junior to me, and I hired him out of college, and I formed him. I got a great story about Keith.
Man.
So I got to tell you, he worked for me, and finally he caught the attention of my boss at the time, Hal McCoy. And he said, what's he do? And I said, kind of just whatever's left over in the marketing department that one of the marketing managers doesn't have time to do. I said, sometimes he just runs artwork to print shops. And this was before computers. So everything was moving around physically. And I said, take some. He said, you know what you need to do with him? And I go, what? And he's like 21. What's a college graduate? 22, 23?
Yeah, it's about 22.
Okay, so he's like a year into his job, just as caught the attention by being around long enough of the president. And he said, I told him what I did. He said, he sounds like a hillbilly. And I said, yeah, he sounds like a hillbilly. I said, he's smart. I said, he's going to be your guy down the road. That guy? And he said, well, then you just got to get him exposed. And I said, exposed to what? And he said, something bigger than what he's been exposed to. I said, be more. He said, just have him meet different people. So I gave him a project, and he had to go to New Jersey. He had to go to New Jersey. Okay. Well, when you walk in New Jersey talking like this, you have a bullet on, you have a bullseye on your back.
Yeah.
So he survived that. The guy that was running, we were making a mug that when you bought like I'm going to make this up, a bucket of chicken, you could get this mug for $1. And it was a high density coffee mug. It was just a premium, just a gizmo. But they were made in New Jersey, where the factory was, and we had to take the artwork and give it to them. Well, instead of having it sent by an airplane, FedEx or whatever we used, or the mail, I had Keith hand deliver it, and I said, and I want you to get to know the guy so that when something goes wrong with these mugs, and something will go wrong, breakage or price or whatever, you're going to be the contact for him. So I just gave him an assignment that put him where he couldn't possibly know what he was talking about.
It was to test him.
Test him. Yeah.
Did he know he was being tested?
No. He was just excited to go do something different.
He was just like, all right.
Probably, yeah, and all right, yeah, I can do this. God, he could bull crap his way through anything. But he went there and he wanted to go to New York City because it's right across the river, the Hudson River. He was in New Jersey. Just go east across the river on the bridge or the tunnel, and you're in New York City.
New York City.
He called me, and I said, what? And he said, Joe, you know New York. And I go, what? It's like 10 o'clock his time, 11 o'clock my time. So I remember I was in bed, and I go, why are you calling me at 11 o'clock? He said, well, I don't know where to go. And I said, well, where are you? Well, if I look down this street, it's real dark. I said, well, don't go there. He said, well, where should I go? And I said, go toward the light. I said, do you have any money? And he said, well, I do now. He said, I got $100. And I said, oh, okay. And he said, the guy in New Jersey gave it to me. And I go, well, why did he give it to you?
Word.
Well, when I told him I wanted to go over to the city, he said, well, how much money do you have? And he said, well, I don't know, like $20. And he said, oh, here, I'm going to give you this, because if you get mugged and you don't have $100, you're going to make the mugger so mad he'll kill you. So here. True story.
Wow.
Told me that. I said, okay, you got $100. Don't go down the dark spot.
Don't go towards the light.
Yeah, go toward the light.
That's hilarious, man.
It is a true story. God.
It goes towards the light, man. Wow. So he made it back safely.
He made it back safely. Yeah.
That's hilarious. Man.
That's a fun story. I hadn't thought of that.
You guys didn't even know that was probably going to happen. We sent him out to New York, but it probably helped him to become who he needed to be, because adversity, right? And like you pretty much are saying, like being able to expose yourself to new environments, new people. And I'm curious too to kind of remind myself, if you could remind me, what does that acronym mean? Because when you told me about the S.O.F.T.E.N, I was like, man, what did the S stand for?
You guys are going to get some college credit for this, because I asked my boss at Wichita State University, who used to teach, it's a sales course. Okay. And I said, tell me who the audience is. And he said they have to have 2 prerequisites, and so there'll be juniors and seniors in college that take this. So I know what level I'm teaching at. And I said, do you think, and I explained S.O.F.T.E.N. would be appropriate to talk with these people that are going into sales? He says, oh, yeah. So S.O.F.T.E.N. stands for individual behaviors. Smile is S. O is open the conversation.
Okay.
F is focus, or you can think of it as forward lean.
Okay.
T is tone, for tone of voice. E is eye contact. And N is name. If you will smile if you will open/control the conversation, if you will lean forward or focus on the person when they're talking to you, if your tone of voice is interested rather than flat, if you maintain eye contact, and if you can use the person's name, Chris, they will relax and think you're friendlier. When they think you're friendly, they are open to either exchanging ideas with you or helping you. You know, dogs wag their tail, and it makes us feel like they're approachable.
Yeah, for sure.
So if you're a boss, say you're a 50-year-old supervisor and you've got a 30-year-old employee, if you use this with them, it makes them relax.
Yeah.
Then when they're relaxed, that's when they have a chance to learn something. And you're, as a boss, you should supervise people and inspect what you expect them to do. But really what you should always do is give them a chance to learn what you know. No one learns when they're scared. No one learns when they're defensive. No one learns when they're embarrassed. So S.O.F.T.E.N works at every level of your life.
And like even like the word of the acronym S.O.F.T.E.N.
Yeah, that's great.
You know, it's like that's like you just said, like nobody learns when they're, you know, stiff and tense. They learn when they're soft and open. So I love it. It stuck with me.
Well, that's good.
You know, it stuck
with
me.
It's stuck
and then
with
people
me.
want to be able to, you know, you could probably obviously like you could sell something to somebody if they're, you know, if they're soft.
Absolutely.
And you know, people would trust
you.
People like want to, you know, possibly buy something from
you know, and I'm starting to read different books and prepare to teach this. And so
so you're really about to be an adjunct professor? Wow.
August 21st is the first class. I'll teach every Tuesday and Thursday in the Barton School of Business at Wichita State. So I'll just be in the classroom twice a week.
So what is the curriculum going to look like?
It is all about personal selling. And I am going to follow the curriculum that he used, my predecessor, who is now the chair of the marketing department, because he said he liked it. He said it wasn't perfect, but it was good. So I'm going to take his advice because, you know, he's done this more than me. And he's not an adjunct professor. He's a full professor. He's on tenure track. You know? That's what he does. And I'm going to bring in some sales experts.
Okay.
And I'm going to make sure I bring in some younger people, because at 70, I'm talking to people in their 20s. The gap's pretty big.
Yes.
And you're their grandpa's age.
Yeah.
You know, and so no one really makes life decisions based on what grandpa says. They make life decisions, and then later on they go, you know, I think my grandpa may have said something about that. I mean, unless you're raised directly by your grandfather. And I'm not raising any of my grandchildren. My sons are raising their children. You know,
exactly.
I raise them, they raise theirs. So I will do that. I'll bring in experts. And here's why. When I was out of school, I wanted to open a restaurant with a friend, and he was one semester behind me because he had to work full time. He was 5 years older and had a son. He was married, so he was in a place where he had to work full time, where I could go to school and work part time.
Right.
You know, like be an intern like I was. We were going to open a restaurant, so I audited a class, and the class was taught by a guy about the age I am now. And he had been an industrial psychologist and an industrial tactician, helping to build dams in Africa, working for the United Nations. The guy had a wide scope. Dr. Lee Nehrt, N-E-H-R-T. Everything in his house was African art.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think he was Swedish. So right there, his scope was massive, international, high level. Building dams, that's big, expensive, long-term thinking.
Man.
And the thing he said that I had not heard in 6 years of business school was, if you think you want to do something, find someone who you admire that is already doing it and talk to them.
Yes, yes. And you told me that as well.
Yeah.
You told me that too.
He sent me, so Steve and I, my buddy who wanted to open the restaurant, went and talked to 3 people.
That already had their own
That
restaurant.
already had their own. And changed my mind. Changed my mind. So there I am, well, crap, now what?
Yeah, what did you realize?
I realized I didn't want the lifestyle that came from it. I didn't want a restaurant of my own bad enough to give up what you had to do it.
Because what is the lifestyle of owning your own restaurant?
You know, I can only remember 2 of the people that I talked to. And one of them was a man who owned a local chain. There were like 4 of them in Wichita, and they were called Daniel's Landing.
Okay.
And they were kind of a trendy fern bar, which was a thing back then. A lot of big wicker chairs.
Okay.
You know, and deep fried vegetables was a big deal. You know, it was stuff that was
grease.
new stuff in the 70s.
Yeah.
It was new stuff in the 70s. And I asked him. I remember I asked him what he liked about it, and he used to be a stockbroker.
Really?
Yeah, and then he started his own restaurant.
Okay.
And he was successful.
Right.
And I said, so tell me about it. And he said, I'm lonely. So we were good enough at interviewing him that he would open up and say that. And this guy's about 40 years old. So he wasn't a kid, and he wasn't a tired old man. Right. He was right in the sweet spot, building and succeeding. And he said, I'm lonely. I said, explain that. And he said, everyone that I talk to in my business works for me. And he said, he said, it's a different relationship when you're the boss.
Right.
And that was something, and I thought, okay, that doesn't sound attractive to me.
Right.
Then I went and we interviewed a guy who had owned a steakhouse. He and his wife owned it.
So that other guy, he was lonely because he's not on the same.
He said, I miss going to the water cooler or the coffee bar or coffee pot and talking with my peers, the other stockbrokers, about the game on Sunday or what their kid did. Or he was lonely.
So even though he was successful at his own restaurant, he was lonely. And
it was just the work environment.
Was he married?
I don't remember.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Man.
Yeah. So that did impress me, and I thought, okay, that stuck with me. And at that time in my life, that being part of something bigger than me was important.
Yes.
Really important. Pizza corporate world appealed to me in that way. And then we interviewed another guy, and he was probably 55. So he wasn't a tired old man, but he was a senior approaching, been there, done that. And 2 things dissuaded me. One, it was a beautiful restaurant. It was a steakhouse, high-end steakhouse, where you went in and every table on the edge was a private alcove where they closed the curtains. I mean, it was white tablecloth, high-end.
Very fine dining.
So people were spending, in 1970, whatever this was, 78, they're spending $25 on a steak. Well, that was expensive, especially in Wichita, Kansas.
Yeah.
So they were doing not quite New York prices in Wichita. The outside of the building was it was 2 stories, only 1 story inside. Real high, showy building with chandeliers, a lot of red velvet. But everything on the outside was mirrors. It was this giant mirror cube.
Where was this at?
On East Douglas.
It's like over there by Vora?
By Eastboro Arms Apartments.
Okay.
Vora was on Douglas. It was on Douglas. This is on East Douglas, kind of close to where Town East is now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, a little bit west of there.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you talked to the owner.
I can't remember the name of it. Talked to the owner. And it was like 9 o'clock at night. Well, people tend to go out and have big dinners later at night. And I remember we had to wait until that time because he was too busy. And while we were sitting there, his wife said something, to him, and I overheard her say, and she was not in a good mood.
Yeah.
And she said, the chef has left. And so he said, okay. Well, he said, I'm busy talking here. And he was. And it was me. I was a very young man, probably 23, and my friend, 28. And he was trying to present himself as kind of a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Yes.
Well, it's a very fancy place. A very big deal. And as we were sitting there, I don't know, 20 minutes went by, and his wife came up and said, well, now the cook has left, so you better get off your ass and get in the kitchen.
Sure. Nobody else is going to cook the steaks.
That's right.
So he had to go in the kitchen.
He had to go
He's the
in.
owner.
He's the owner.
The captain.
That's right. And that's what you do when you're the owner.
Did he know how to cook the steaks?
Oh, yeah. He knew how to do it. He had probably done it for the first 2 years himself. And
so
then
he was like, excuse me real quick.
Uh-huh. And
Wow.
I'm thinking, he's 55 and he's doing this. I don't want any part of that.
You gotta have good chefs that are not gonna walk
Yeah.
out.
And man, after I spent my 10 years in operations, I didn't enjoy it. It's hard.
So then after you realize, like, hey, I don't want to do a restaurant.
Yeah.
What then?
I had already done the internship. I was fully employed by Pizza by that time in the marketing department in
Wow,
a very
23.
entry-level position, like a marketing research analyst. And so I decided it's not restaurants I dislike, it's the lifestyle of being the guy that owns it.
Should people look for, their career based more on their lifestyle rather than the money and the status?
I think so. I envisioned myself when we had a restaurant. I really envisioned it would be on East Douglas, kind of where Vora is, only one of those big mansions on Douglas.
Okay.
And people would come in, and I'd be at the front door wearing a tuxedo.
Okay,
That's
yeah. That's how you pictured it.
Yes, welcoming them and making them feel,
Wow.
and hobnobbing with the mayor and the director of finance for this company. And that's the vision I had. Well, then when I met these guys, and I can't remember the third person we interviewed, but it was very different. But it was another one that I go, oh, wake up, son. So being told, and I had to get a master's degree before I was told this.
Really?
And just lucky I'm auditing this class, which means you just sit in the class and don't get any credit. Already had the degrees, so I didn't need it. Went to this class, and Dr. Naird said, go talk to 3 people who are doing what you think you want to do. He gave us 2 assignments: write your business plan, and then talk to these 3 people. And
That's
come
such a
back.
great assignment.
Oh, God.
Oh, my goodness. I would
know.
love to have an assignment like that.
It is amazing.
It's like,
So
Yeah.
in my class, when I'm the professor, I will bring in 3 salespeople that are doing it.
awesome.
And I also happen to have inside that one of them is the son of a lady who's the chief marketing officer from the company I retired from. Another sales professional is a sales manager for a big insurance company. That's my son.
Okay.
And so,
Yeah, Joey.
yeah. So I have the inside scoop on these guys. I'll probably have someone come in from cars, automobiles, because that's person you're selling to a person. These guys, one of them sells to businessmen that own their own companies, and some personal stuff like Medicare insurance. So they do some. They're in both those fields. And then I'll have somebody like the other guy. He sells software to corporations, some kind of software. I think onboarding software, something in the HR realm, which is business to business. And I know that every day's not just a walk through the park.
What's the key to sales?
I think I'm not going to answer this as a professional salesperson. I'm going to answer this as a professional buyer. I think the salespeople that I remember are those who had built strong enough relationships with the other departments in their company that during the sell, they made me feel confident that if they didn't know the answer, they would find the guy, and did find the guy that got the answer.
Okay.
And then their relationship with the others in the company made the others want to deliver, so that when down the road something went wrong and I talked to him or her, mine were two guys, I remember, that they could get the others in the company to fix it. Because they're busy working on the next new customer and the next new product and the next new account and the next new whatever. So you need your salesperson to go to bat with you and say, hey, tech guys, we got a guy who's been sending us checks for 2 years now, and all of a sudden he wanted to add a widget and you said it would work and it doesn't work. Well, you need someone inside. So I think those salespeople that can get the rest of the organization to work for their customer. Wow. I think that's it. And so that's interpersonal relationships.
Wow. That's the key. That seems like just like the key all around. Because even like when you talked about the will, it's just like interpersonal relationships.
Yeah.
Soft
it really
skills,
is.
You know?
It is.
And then it goes back to that study, you know, the Harvard study.
Yeah, you're right. That Harvard study, it was I don't know if it was done in America. Yeah, it was done in America.
Yeah, I think so.
And it had a different name, and they renamed it the Harvard Study. And what they did is they took these people and they followed them through their life. And they said, at age 45, we're just going to set it down and see what this one thing that they found is that at age 45, those people who had the most meaningful relationships, and everybody defined meaningful relationship on what was meaningful to them.
Right.
But those who had the highest number, they tended to live longest.
Wow.
So they said immortality, there is something that we feed off of each other. And now they could have asked it at 30 or they could have measured it at 60, but they just picked 45. Because that's kind of the middle of your adult life.
Pretty much.
Yeah. So some social scientists that put this together said, okay, let's just take it at the middle and see. We're going to guess that 45 is long enough that they're kind of developed into who they're going to be and who they're going to end up being, you know, hopefully. And so those that had the most meaningful relationships ended up having longer life. Wow. And they also found there is a higher happiness with those people.
So not just spouses, but just overall, just like a good relationship with their kids.
You're mixing up two studies.
Oh, those are two different studies.
The Harvard study is the one where they measured the number of relationships.
Oh, okay.
I think that thing about the 95% of your happiness comes from the person you choose as a spouse, I think that was a bumper sticker in North Dakota.
Oh, that makes me feel so much better.
Yeah, you want to get that. Now, it may have been on a tobacco truck, so I don't know, a beer truck.
Okay, right. Man, that makes me feel so much better because like 95%, it's like, man, it's already hard trying to figure out the right one.
That wasn't a perfect study. That was someone's opinion that I saw it, and I go,
man, I'm so glad you told me that. It was a bumper sticker.
Yeah.
Right. But I would say, though,
it was a poster on a wall in a store. It really was.
I would say, though, a good chunk, though, of your happiness.
Yeah.
You know, maybe not 95, but, you know, maybe even like 60 or something, half at least, right?
Hell, if it's a third of it. I mean, it matters. Right. It's who you bounce against all the time.
Yeah, because I remember you told me about the friend that you know, and we won't say his name, he's not happy in his marriage.
Yeah.
You know, and he should have walked away a long time ago.
Oh, yes.
And it's just like, I don't want to be like that.
No, you don't want to be.
Man, I don't want anybody to have to deal with that.
You know, this sounds like an old guy saying this, but sometimes you tell and sometimes you ask. And either way, it should be in a nice tone, but in a marriage, you shouldn't always have to ask permission. There should be some room, some space for two people to do their own thing so that when you come back together, you have something to talk about. The people in a marriage where the noose is too tight or the leash is so short that they can't be aware if they'll check back in right away, that's sad that there's control on one side and just giving up control on the other side.
Right.
So, you know, of course you ask about the big things, but the little things, you don't abuse your relationship, but the idea of must always be present, must always be accountable. That's sad. That's
insecurity.
Not
like, why do you need to know where they're going all the time?
Yeah. I'll be home when I get home, and
a lack of trust.
A lack of trust. Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, that's hard.
It's tough.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so then it's just like, obviously those relationships don't last long, or sometimes they do because people keep it together because the mortgage, the kids,
and mutual dependence.
Talk a little bit about that.
Okay. It happens at every economic level. It happens at every demographic level you can think of around the world. So that's not it. I've seen it. Okay. They get so used to being the martyr that becomes how they define their self-worth.
Wow.
And so I think what happens when you do that is that you have lost some self-confidence on being defined by yourself as who you are. Yeah. And so you depend on your relationship to that person.
Wow. And
I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist, so I'm an expert on Joe. Yeah, but
That's all we want to, That's all we just want to hear your own expertise.
But I'm an avid observer of patterns I see in other people that I admire and love.
Right.
And some of them are great at this, but they're lousy at that. And it brings them, it's so hard to watch somebody that has so much to give be constrained and not be able to participate because they got to be home at that time.
Oh my
be
goodness.
Home on that time,
That sucks.
So that does suck, yeah.
And it's just too hard for them to walk away because they're still probably doing that. And there's so many other people who are living those lives. I see clients all the time that come in, and sometimes it might even be people feel like, well, I can't leave because of my faith. Right. But I'm like, God doesn't want you to be in this kind of relationship.
That's right. God does not want that.
This is not good.
I'm Catholic, and divorce is not accepted in the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
And we believe that marriage is a sacrament.
Okay.
But no sacrament can be valid when it depends on two people, and two people don't partake or participate at the same level. It's not a holy union when one person's the giver and one person's the taker.
What kind of union is it?
It's codependency.
Yeah.
You know what? When you lack self-confidence, you just allow yourself to be abused and used. So I don't know how to teach self-confidence. I don't know how to...
Assertiveness training. That's something that I do there at the practice.
Really?
Yeah, assertiveness training. Because like you said, like people... You choose to be a doormat.
Yeah.
And so when you put yourself by the door, obviously you have low self-esteem, low self-worth.
Yes.
So you feel like I'm just worthy for this. You can walk over me.
Okay.
And those people, they're usually people pleasers. And people pleasers are the exact opposite of narcissists.
Okay.
A people pleaser cares about everybody else and little about themselves, and the narcissist cares only about himself or herself. And not really the feelings of anybody else.
Okay.
And so they're a match made in
heaven.
Not in heaven, the exact opposite.
Match made in hell, all right. But they, okay. Yeah. Well,
trauma bond.
Yeah, trauma.
Trauma bond, really, it's...
I was so lucky as a kid. I had a mom and dad my whole life. They were together my whole life.
Man.
That is just such a blessing.
Absolutely.
And they obviously patted me on the head and patted me on the ass,
Right.
Slapped me on the back at the right times,
Right.
Enough, come here, go away. The balance. They both had an 8th grade education, but gosh, were they wise.
Wow.
And gentle and held you accountable.
Right. Do you feel like parents are doing that now?
I'm not smart enough to say that. I mean, honestly, right. I'm not. Here's what I see. I see parents doing it, And then I see when parents are divorced that they are scarred from a hard exchange. Divorce is hard on everybody involved.
Man.
Something is broken, and it kind of breaks the people. And kids are smart, and they're manipulative because that's their only power. And so they'll manipulate. And when they can tell that a mother or a father is feeling bad or feeling guilty because the kid lost out because of the divorce, and the parents can sometimes tend to blame too much of the way the kid acts on the divorce.
Right.
It's because the kid knows he's got a little power with the guilt leverage. And so I see divorced parents work too hard to overcompensate because they put their kid through a divorce.
Wow.
And so they won't hold them as accountable as soon.
Because they feel sorry.
They feel sorry and they feel guilt.
Yeah.
And since I've not lived through it, I don't know how to fix that.
Yeah, I see that. I see it there at the practice. And so at the end of the day, it's like you still have to put your foot down, because when you feel sorry for your kids or for anybody, then you start to enable them. And that doesn't help somebody, especially a child, to get to where they need to be in life. Right. You just kind of get a pass. You're like, all right.
We'll let you go.
Because
the world won't let you go.
No. There's no IEP in the real life. There's no 504 plan.
There you go.
They don't care. Life. They don't even care about your diagnosis. Like,
they
if
don't
you have
care.
One, they don't care if you have anxiety. You gotta be at work.
Yeah, be at work.
You gotta be at work. I remember, I can't remember, but there was a story, and there was like this guy who got hired. He was like a homeless man, and I remember seeing you posted something about it.
Right.
Yes, and it was really interesting. Stories. Yeah, those stories like that. But it's like work ethic is, not the same as it used to be.
Well, you know what? They said that about my generation. It wasn't the same. But you know what? I don't think it was, but maybe it didn't have to be, because industrialization was fully there. Everything was mechanized when I got there. And so no one had to put the harness on the oxen, which literally a generation and a half before me, crap, you got to put the harness on the horse and on the oxen.
Yeah.
Well, either the horse is moving or he's not. Either the wheat's getting cut or it's not.
Right.
So I think they had to be accountable quicker because it was just hard.
It was harder.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to live hard. I mean, none of us want to live. Because then before that, it wasn't the oxen that had the yoke. It was the man who was dragging the yoke. It was...
That was a lot of physical labor.
That's right.
And
so they just had to. So work ethic, it really... I tell my grandkids, I said, work ethic means you hang when you have to have grit.
Yeah.
That's the word, grit.
How would you define that word? Like, how do you
define
grit?
I define grit that it's not going well. It's not going smooth, and you just suffer and persevere through it to the other side.
Yeah, you carry the cross.
That's perfect. You carry the cross till finally, even glass gets ground down. If you keep dragging the sled across the hard glass, it gets ground down, it gets easier. Pretty soon you got momentum working for you instead of against you.
Wow.
And so what does that mean? It meant you kept going. So much as show up,
right, and
the other is do the work and be accountable when you're the one who's pulling the sled too slow.
It would make so much sense.
It does.
People would try to blame other people, or other systems for the reason to why the sled is being slow. But do your part. Show up.
Do your part.
And do the work.
Do the work. You're getting paid to do the work. If you don't like the work, don't take that job or leave that job. But don't stay there. My father once said something. He was unhappy about something at work. and he ran a machine shop. And I remember him saying something. I said, well, I never heard you talk about that. And he said, well, I won't talk about it outside our house. And I go, why is that? And he said, when you're taking a man's money, he's talking about his boss, who was the owner. He said, when you're taking a man's money, don't take his money during the day and talk crap about him behind his back at night.
Wow.
And that was a blue collar. He had been a farm boy who got into manufacturing, learned a trade, and became a respected machinist. A machinist is the guy the mechanics go to when the machine is not going to get put back together right because something's wrong. You got to make it right. So it was a blue collar skilled job. But that was the thing he said. You don't take a man's money and talk crap about it.
Behind their back. I love it.
You either confront him and get it changed, or you change, or you go somewhere else.
Or you be quiet.
Or you be quiet. That's right.
Just don't say nothing.
I remember once I had a boss named Hal McCoy. You've heard me talk about Hal.
Yeah, definitely.
And it was, I'm verbal and touchy-feely. And Hal was then at that time probably moving into his 60s. And he was removing himself from daily operations of running the business. He had a son who took it over, was old enough and experienced enough it was appropriate for the boy in his probably mid-30s to do that. And I was reporting directly to the old man, okay? And I was about an age between them. And so I eventually reported to his son, but I was still reporting to Hal Sr. And he had sent an email. And I said, well, I probably didn't read it. And he said, well, you need to read it. I said, Hal, I like to interact in person, or we could talk on the phone. And I remember he just looked at me and he said, well, one of us is going to have to change.
It's not going to be him.
And it ain't going to be me, because Hal was the me writing the check. And me was the one cashing the check.
Uh-oh.
So, okay.
That's all you can do.
That's all I could do. I said, I have to change. And so, obviously, the whole world changed to that.
Oh, my gosh, I hate emails.
I know.
Because I was like that, too, when I worked for somebody. I was like, you're right down the hall.
You're
like,
right there.
Why can't I just... But, I mean, it is, I guess, easier. It's more convenient.
Oh,
but
it is.
Not when it's like these long paragraphs and then emotions get into it.
But, you can see somebody in his position. He was span of control.
Yeah.
And, it just became more efficient for him.
But you have to adapt to the feedback. Like when he told you that, you had to adapt to the feedback, because if you didn't, you could have lost.
Right. Well, that's too bad. I remember.
I'll find somebody who can.
Exactly. I remember I worked for him 3 times, and so that was the 3rd time. The first time that I remember, he said something real smart. I had a guy working for me. I just saw him last week, gave him a guitar lesson. He's 73. We're still friends.
Oh, wow.
And he had done something that my boss, Hal, did not like.
Uh-oh.
It was a physical postcard it was artwork and coupons or something like that. And he said, that looks so stupid. And I said, it's not your job. And I said, I'll handle it, and he was the president. And then he had something else. We didn't agree, so we kind of got a little snippy with each other. Well, he was the boss, and I was respectful, but I'm paid to give my opinion.
Yeah.
And my opinion, if he liked it or not, was my opinion.
Yeah, right.
So, we're doing something. We go on, and he said this. We had quit arguing, and I said, I will handle it.
Uh-oh.
And we're going on, and he didn't like something else. I said, God almighty, Hal, I wish you'd just let me do my job. And he said, oh, God, I wish you would.
Uh-oh.
Oh, yeah. So what happened there is that I got a relationship with him because of his skill set and his security, and my skill set and my willingness to learn from a master, and my security. And there was not an even exchange of ideas because he was the senior, he was the boss, but there was an exchange of ideas. Finally, it was his money and it was his business, so it was going to be his way, but he did pay me for my opinion.
Right.
So the the relationship was what was wonderful about that. We were just selling chicken and pizza, nothing important. I mean, it wasn't heart stents. I mean, it wasn't airplanes.
Right. But people need it.
People need it.
People needed chicken and pizza, right?
So it really is that.
The relationship,
everything
from your the business, from your kids to your partner, like I said before, the highest value is relationships.
It changes your life, and I'm so glad I heard that thing about the Harvard study.
Yeah, about just like the overall, like the average, I guess, of your overall healthiness of the relationships that are in your life.
Yeah,
because we talked about too. If you have a healthy relationships, you don't need to go to the gym.
Now you are a professional counselor, so I thought of you in this regard for the first time in regards to myself. My wife said the other day, no, just today, she said, okay, you need to soften a little bit. God, that word. And I didn't even think of soften. She said, I can see you're getting into a little more pointed in your exchanges. And it's with people that I care about, and sometimes I just get more abrupt and a little tough. And I like to think of myself as a nice guy.
Right.
Up through middle age, I always wanted everyone to like me. When I became the chief operating officer, I didn't have time for everyone to like me. I needed everybody to listen to me. And part of that has stuck with me. And so when I get under deadline, when I get under stress, the part of my personality that comes out when I'm on a deadline, or I have something to get to, or there's a real stressful situation, I get to cut the bullshit, Joe, real quick.
Yeah, very direct.
I get real direct. And sometimes it's appropriate, but not always. Because I get in that mode, which is what she's telling me. I am getting that mode. And, okay, I have an 81-year-old sister. She'll be 82 soon. She has slowed down mentally.
Yeah.
And she plays the role a little bit of little old lady, because she used to be a director of finance for a big airplane company. So she's a lot smarter than me, okay? But every once in a while it's convenient just to be there. But it makes her feel bad.
Right.
Because she can't control it. She loves them, but she can't control it. So I have to be careful with my big sister. Because it tests my patience. Because I want her to be sharp.
Right.
Because I've got her on a pedestal.
Right.
And she's, if you can't slow down at 81, hell, when can you slow down? So I know that, okay? Because I'm at 70. I can tell I can't do it 70. I couldn't compete with the Joe that was 50. And the Joe at 50 could compete with the guy at 30.
Right. And so kind of like what you were saying, though, like your wife was saying, you have to kind of soften up a bit, but you kind of get more direct when the pressure comes. And so what happens usually is it's control. We want to be in control.
Right.
The ego loves to be in control.
So what do you tell me to do besides listen to my wife? Breathe, count to 10.
Ultimately, it is really about letting go, but there's a little bit more, it gets more complex. But that's kind of like the core of it, is letting go. Because when we get stressed out, stress comes from unmet expectations. And so anytime your expectations are unmet, you get stressed.
Yeah.
And obviously stress can be good too, because you might realize, wow, I didn't expect to run into this person.
Right.
My
stress, I'm so lucky to be in control so much of my life.
Yeah.
That it is self-induced. I said, yes, I will be an adjunct professor. Well, that's an honor to me.
Right. Yeah.
To anybody that cares to hear my opinion, that's, I'm the man, Okay, stress is induced because, like, tomorrow we're going to be on stage and we're being paid to perform for these very wealthy patrons that paid a lot of money to watch this.
Yeah. Pressure.
And so that's it. But that's all self-imposed. I didn't have to start this band. I didn't have to take the booking. I didn't.
Right.
The agent called. I could have said, "Oh no, I don't want to do it." Mm-mm. So it's all fun stuff, but it's good stress.
It's good stress. We need that.
Yeah.
We need good stress.
I keep putting myself into those situations that do bring on expectations, and you must perform. In this case, literally. But show up, do the work, and be real good at it. Because you're being paid damn well with either my time, my money to do this. You know, so that's good stress. Yes. But I can tell it changes, obviously. My wife has said
she wants you to
get a little soft a little bit.
Yeah. And so then we adapt to the feedback.
Yeah.
You see, so this is good. She's, somebody outside looking in. Yeah, she's the best. And she's telling you something. So then we just have to adapt to the feedback. Because a lot of people, especially people who have really big egos, they don't know how to adapt to the feedback.
Yeah.
Because, I'm not doing anything wrong. You know what I mean? But it's just well, have you ever thought maybe you might? Okay. It's just imagine because obviously you're in the restaurant business. Imagine somebody, they have a chicken shack or some kind of restaurant, and there's multiple chicken restaurants on the same street, but they're not getting any business. That chicken place is not getting any business, and they're playing victim, saying, man, people in the city just don't like chicken. But it's hey, there's 4 other chicken spots like yours
with a line.
Have you ever thought about maybe changing your recipe?
My recipe's special. Yeah, we can tell.
Yeah, so adapting to the feedback. And so it's really actually can be difficult because that means people don't want to do it because they want to protect their ego. Yeah. So that Chicken Shack restaurant, they're like, hey, this is my grandmother's chicken recipe. But it's hey, your grandma's chicken recipe is not selling.
Yeah.
Everybody else
is great in the bayou, but no one here wants it.
Right. Chick-fil-A's over here. Cane's Chicken, which is actually coming to Wichita, is over here.
Slim chicken over here.
And they're doing well.
They're
but you easily could do well too, but maybe you just need to change up the recipe. Have you thought about softening up these skills with your customers? I mean, with your employees, so they can speak to the customers. So it's just, I really like that. It stuck with me. Adapt to the feedback.
Where'd you hear that?
It was Mr. Mukes. We had him on the show, and he's a therapist.
Spell his last name.
William Mukes. Mukes.
Great name, Mukes.
Mukes. He would say puke.
Yeah.
Just like how you say sauerkraut.
Yeah. Sauerkraut.
I like how people have those little
Mukes pukes. Yeah.
He said that. He's adapt to the feedback. Because we were talking about something similar to this, but I've heard him say it before. I was like, man, I really like that.
Look, you know what Hal McCoy said to me one time?
Yeah.
He said, words matter.
Yes.
Those words, adapt to the feedback, stuck with you. Soften.
Stuck with
me. Well, I created that based on the work I did with some other guys.
Right.
But words matter. What a powerful tool. And I'll tell you, when I get a book, and some guys are really good storytellers.
Yeah.
And then there are others who, say they're a historian. Mm-hmm. So they're not making up a novel. They're just reporting what they researched and think happened in some time in the past. But they have such a way with the language that I stop and I go, God, I wish I could talk like that. It's not poetry and it's not a song, but their use of the language is just better.
Right.
And it is such a gift when someone can command the language and have things that you remember.
Because they paint a picture.
Yeah.
You see, so then it picks up another, because I remember I heard something else said, it said facts tell, but stories sell, and you probably know that in marketing, right?
Yeah.
You have a commercial, know, and so it's People want to connect to the story because the story brings emotion.
Absolutely.
Facts are just like, hey, the sky's
There's
blue.
millions of them. Yeah, in a commercial, if you can attach an emotion to it
Yes.
in any way, they'll remember it because they have a chance to connect with something that's happened to them.
And the emotions come from stories.
Yes, they do.
Your own story, whether it
Yeah.
be the childhood story or even
Well,
a movie.
I only know Jesus, but they said that
Yeah.
the best teachers were the best storytellers. So you think
Yes.
of Buddha and Jesus.
Wow, the best teachers are the best storytellers.
And then you get to the guys who were magical with words. I think of Winston Churchill.
Yes, Churchill, yes.
I just heard him on some TV show, probably some documentary, within a month ago, and they were playing his radio address where he said, "We will never surrender." Now, he's talking to the people in England, and they have been hiding underground because their homes are being bombed by the Germans. And he said, "We will never surrender. We will fight to the seas. We will fight to the last drop."
Wow.
I almost tear up. The guy's use of the language,
Right.
it's
a sword.
magnificent.
Yes.
Yeah,
It's a sword.
magnificent. I think we live in the world we live in because of Winston Churchill. I think him standing up and saying, "No, it damn well stops here. This little island is not going to get coveted by the big German Empire. We're going to stay separate."
Wow.
Yeah. And
Wow.
so
Churchill.
I think every once in a while that God sends us a saint that gives us medicine that's hard. That was hard to say, "No, we're going to fight till we're all dead."
Man,
Well, God Almighty.
We'll see if God sends a saint now, they'll be canceled.
Yeah. You know what? He
They'll be
sent us Abraham Lincoln. I mean, how did that happen?
Man.
A kid in the wilderness of Illinois.
Yeah, that's where he was from, Illinois.
Yeah, and it was like
Wow.
nothing.
They need to make a movie on Abraham.
They do.
Why haven't they made a movie?
Why don't we make a movie?
Man, I would love to make a movie.
You know, other than Jesus Christ, more
Right.
books have been written about Abraham Lincoln than anyone else on earth.
So he's second with Jesus?
Second to Jesus.
Oh, wow. That's a statistic.
That's how many books have been written about him.
And there's no more.
None that I can think of.
What about that? There might.
There's a movie I saw about him. I remember it was more a Civil War movie because I remember him mourning the death of his son during the movie.
Right.
And it was during the war, and I think a little boy die.
Mm.
And I remember his son was a soldier. His oldest son was a soldier.
Did he get into politics?
No.
Yeah.
Can you imagine what it's like being the president and sending people to war, and one of them is your son?
Oh, wow.
You think going home to mama was easy? Oh, God.
But then it gave him a sense of kind of empathy, though.
Yeah.
It's like, my son's out there, too, fighting for the country.
There's no way I can feel good about it. But it's the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do. I think, I think we had a George Washington who gave the majority of his adult life to making this weird idea come true, the Constitution.
Yeah. Right.
We had people like Adams and Jefferson and Franklin and Monroe that could dream this up. And as sloppy and ugly as it is, we're living in the bubble.
In the bubble.
America, we are on the top of the bubble.
Do you think we'll stay here at the bubble? And how do you feel
We'll stay here till I'm gone.
Yeah. should we
Lucky for me, I die first.
I'm curious though, not to get too much into politics, but I am curious about your thoughts about the state of the country, because you've lived longer than I am, or that I have.
Yeah.
And there's positives and negatives, obviously, but
I'm an expert on Joe, okay?
You're expert on Joe. Yeah, that's all we want to know.
That's
yeah,
all I
expertise
got.
on Joe, yes.
All right, so I believe that people need to be accountable.
Yes.
I believe that you live with your decisions, and we all make mistakes and make bad decisions. Get out of it as much as you can, but pay back whatever you took. So I believe that, okay, this is unpopular with some.
Yeah.
If you got a loan to go to a college, one, you're lucky you get to go to college, okay? We're talking about people lucky. If you just get the opportunity to go to college, you're lucky. So if you borrow money to do it, well, then that's your decision.
Mm-hmm.
You know, other people borrow money to buy a car. You can decide to get a crappy car and go to college, or no car and go to college. But you borrowed the money, so pay it back. Did you borrow it from the wrong guy? If you got certain college loans, yeah. But to tell me that an 18-year-old can't understand simple interest, I don't buy it. I don't buy it. You know, I mean, you know what you're signing at 18. I understood taxes. I wasn't a brilliant kid. I was a smart kid, but I wasn't a brilliant kid. I saw brilliant kids. I wasn't one.
But the school systems, they're not teaching about interest, taxes.
That's sad.
Yeah, they don't teach about money.
That's sad.
Maybe one class, financial literacy, but not like in a way they can apply it.
My parents taught me. And again, 8th grade education.
Wow.
8th grade education.
They must have went to some middle school.
Yeah.
Must have been like just like a collegiate or something.
No, man. It was Western Kansas, and they were taught by nuns. And they all learned, my parents spoke German at home.
Wow.
Because their parents were immigrants, you know, and so they...
How would Churchill feel about that?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Wow.
I had an uncle, this is a sad story, he was a drinker. And I didn't know what caused this until 5 years ago. I have a cousin 2 years older than me, and he said, well, Pete never got over, he was a hand-to-hand combat in World War II.
Wow.
My Uncle Pete, and he never got over it. And he said part of it is that he spoke German at home. And as an American soldier, he's killing combatants, German soldiers, that spoke the same as his home language.
Wow.
He said that scarred him. And so my Uncle Pete, who was always at the family reunions, always drinking too much, or at the weddings or whatever, always causing a fight with the neighbors, always that, he was damaged goods.
Wow.
Obviously, since I didn't like him, I feel guilt that I judged him poorly. And it was from, I just didn't know how much he had been hurt.
PTSD.
How can a normal boy, God, they're 18 or 19. How can a normal boy go and do that and not be changed?
Oh, man. Because, 18, 19, going off to war to fight,
Lord,
to kill for the
scared
country.
beyond scared, even though you're full of testosterone and vinegar. Clean that
hormones up. And all that.
Yeah.
But still, like the stuff you see and hear, people don't talk about too, like, because trauma you can hear.
Yeah.
You know, like the noises, the explosions, the smell.
Okay, here's one. My dad told me one time, Pete, he was 5 years younger than Pete. And he was 14, and Pete had come, he was a young teenager, and his brother had come home from battle. And they lived in Western Kansas on a farm. And he said Pete was going out on a date. He had walked out of the farmhouse, was walking in front of the car, and was coming to get into the car on the left-hand side, like you do. My dad, being a smart aleck young teenager, was in there, and he honked. Pete, just coming back from war, dropped. He said it's just an involuntary reaction. You hear a loud noise, you just drop, because that could be a mortar shell or a bullet coming. And so he got up, and he's covered with feather. It was a barnyard.
You're right.
Feathers and crap, and he was wearing his uniform, which was the only good suit he had. He said he pulled me out of that car through the car window and beat the living hell out of me. So
That is something
wow.
else.
So now, having heard that story, how did I not figure out that maybe he could have stayed wounded?
Wow.
He could have stayed scared of loud noises.
Yeah, for sure.
He stayed alive, so obviously you better be scared.
Yeah.
So
Anxiety can keep us alive.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
wow, man. But Joe, I really appreciate you coming on the show again. You know,
Thank
a lot
you.
of people won't know that the first episode wasn't able to make it because it got
That's right.
the file was corrupted. So I really appreciate you coming on
How
again,
fun to
man.
talk to you.
Yes, man. And I actually enjoyed this conversation even more than the last one, but I still enjoyed the last one as well, man. So I learned a lot from you every time I talk to you.
And I got free counseling. I learned a lot from you too.
Definitely, man. And your stories. I think that you're a great storyteller.
Thanks.
Like when I first met you, you know, when we were at what's it called, like, and we went over to Homegrown too. Like,
Yeah.
you're a great storyteller.
Thank
you know, you have stories and you do have wisdom, even though you're, you know, expert only on yourself.
Uh-huh.
But I mean, I feel like you have a lot of, you know, wisdom, not just only in like career, but just life. You know,
Thank
like
you.
I would, you know, love to be married that long.
Yeah.
And you know, 11 grandkids. So I
You
really
need to meet her.
appreciate it. Yes. What's her name again?
Her name's Carol with a K.
Girl with a K.
K-A-R-O-L.
Yeah.
She's only the second Carol with a K that I know.
Well, that's special. That's how
She
you-
is special. The other one was a pope.
Really?
Carol Wojtyla, who
Carol
became
the Pope.
Pope John Paul II.
Oh, you would have been married to a pope.
Well, kind of. She ain't no pope. I'm no saint. She ain't no pope.
Right, man. You're funny too, man. So I appreciate you coming in
All
again.
right.
Thank you so much,
Chris,
Joe. I appreciate
this is an
it,
honor.
man.
I look forward to seeing us.
Man. Awesome. Yes, definitely. And
All right.
Hey, so this is the Fully Connected Podcast, man. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you comment, like, share, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. But we're gonna sign off for now. So until the next one, take care.
Good. You're good at this.
Fully Connected.